Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps, and we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a few news items from Deloitte. There's a number of stories that recently came out about Deloitte, so I just wanted to cover them all in one episode. The first story we're going to be talking about is Deloitte's sale of their restructuring arm in the UK. And a lot of places are reporting about this, that they're putting up their restructuring arm for sale, but they're not really talking about why. The reason they're talking about why is because the FRC in the UK wants the Big Four accounting firms to split up their advisory businesses apart from the audit businesses. So this is just part of that, because you're not going to sell a division of your business that is likely to do really well, especially in the middle of a pandemic, unless you have to. And Daniel Butters, who's the head of the division, has told everyone in the firm that he's going to start discussions with private equity firms to sell this division of their business. And the business is expected to do well because of COVID-related economic issues. There's going to be a lot of companies that have financial struggles and rather just sell their company outright or reorganize. And as we've seen in the past, there's other Big Four accounting firms that are already looking into this. We've discussed KPMG. They're looking into this, and this will only continue. The Big Four still have some time before they have to do all this, but you can expect these talks to keep going on. Now, the next news story is about Deloitte being fined by the FRC. So in this story, the Financial Reporting Council in the UK, they fined Deloitte $470,000. And this was for an audit of a UK benefit plan that was not specified. And this is just another example of the Big Four facing tons of regulatory sanctions in the UK. And the penalty could have been higher, but Deloitte admitted to some wrongdoing, so the amount was lowered. But this is more evidence of why the Big Four accounting firms are being forced to split up in the UK and just how much regulation they face. It's almost on a weekly basis where we hear about FRC fines, and there's just tons of regulation in the UK. And a Deloitte partner was also reprimanded as part of the deal. And the reason they were fined is because they did not obtain enough audit evidence. And we see this over and over again. And I believe this happens primarily due to lack of leadership. The Big Four accounting firms partners don't review enough, because if you're a partner and you've been doing this work over and over, you should be able to know when you don't have enough audit evidence. But this keeps happening, and it shows that leadership needs to take more action. They need to look into these audits, and it's ruining their business to the point to where they have to sell divisions. So just something to keep in mind. And if you work at the Big Four accounting firms, or you want to, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard. You can't expect that the partner is going to catch everything you do. You have to rely on yourself and be ethical, because if you're not ethical, then these firms could be regulated out of existence, as we saw in the US with Arthur Andersen. So you have to be careful. You can't always rely on leadership. You have to take ownership yourself. And the last story that I wanted to discuss about Deloitte is regarding a lawsuit that they faced in the United States. And in this lawsuit, Deloitte has to settle claims that they underpaid women. And they have to pay $275,000 in back pay to 34 female employees in the United States. And this occurred in Tennessee and Georgia. And Deloitte denies that they discriminated against women. But this is more evidence of what I spoke about last week when we were talking about ESG standards. The Big Four accounting firms love to put out a bunch of graphs and numbers about how they're working on diversity. They have diversity goals, but the numbers between men and women don't really change. And maybe it's something that's hard to change, but the Big Four accounting firms are going to put a lot of information and press releases out there. But as you can see, the evidence isn't really there, and they have to settle these lawsuits because Some of these employees are figuring out that they're not paid adequately, and it's basically, as they allege, that there's discrimination against them. And the only reason you would say there's discrimination is that there's large discrepancies between employees. For some reason, this is happening, and the Big Four accounting firms still have a lot of work to do on it. I mean, it's just crazy how much credit they take for doing this, and yet this type of stuff keeps happening. And the numbers, they admit the numbers. Like, you don't have to just take my word for it or believe this lawsuit where they admit they did nothing wrong. They actually put evidence out there. They have goals of diversity that they just don't meet, and issues keep extending. Now, whether they should hold themselves up to these issues is another thing, but they hold themselves to it and then they don't meet it. So those are the news stories for today. Stay up to date. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Financially support us if you can through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. And if you can't financially support us, then just go ahead and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel and like this video on our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.